Hello everyone, and welcome to another ASEG affiliate webcast. My name is Susan Revoletto, Membership Support Specialist here at ASEG headquarters in Chicago. I will be your moderator for this event. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for this presentation. Today's webcast, What You Don't Know About SAP BusinessObjects Cloud and how to leverage this all-inclusive analytics suite is brought to you by Microexcel. Today's webcast is being recorded. That recording and the accompanying slides will be posted to the ASEG website, and all registrants will receive an email with the link to those materials. Our speakers today are Abe Iruegas, SAP Leader for North America from Microexcel, and Dan Ivanov, SAP BusinessObjects Cloud Account Team, from SAP. I'd like to remind our audience members that you can submit questions at any time during the presentation by clicking the purple Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Also, please take a moment to maximize your live view screen now by clicking the upper right-hand corner. And now I'd like to turn it over to Abe.
Thank you, Susan, and good morning, folks. Again, my name is Abe Iruegas, and today I'll be taking you through the presentation. And really, there's a few things that we wanted to accomplish just to set the stage. Really, I know that there's been a lot of levels of understanding of the BusinessObjects Cloud product, and actually it varies from not being even aware that it exists to just some misconceptions about where it fits into the portfolio. And then also some struggles with trying to identify opportunities to leverage it within your BI strategy. So we'll cover, what the product is about to begin with, where it fits into the overall SAP analytics strategy, and really take you through some use cases, specifically with some customer examples to demonstrate where the product can add value to BI reporting and analytics, and how you can apply it to your strategies as you move forward with your leverage of transactional systems like SAP and any other data source. So start off with just a brief introduction of Microexcel. So we're an SAP reseller and services partner focused in the SAP technology portfolio, both for on-premise applications and cloud applications. And as an overall pillar to all our practice capability, business intelligence is at the forefront of that. So we work with our customers to advise them on how to extract data, how to normalize data, how to stage it, and then eventually how to report and how to create a compelling analytics around that. So we've been in that space since 2001, and today we'll be obviously very laser focused on what we've delivered for our BI customers. Now let's talk a little bit about the business intelligence challenge that faces most of our clients and organizations as a whole. So in reality, and for most of you that are probably leveraging some sort of SAP application or SAP reporting tool, the largest challenge that we've heard from our customers is having a unified reporting and analytics strategy for all user types, right? So you probably kind of, dealt with this similar story where, I might have a different application and a different reporting tool for my executive. I might have a different tool and an application for the finance aspect of it. I can have a completely separate set of reports and maybe the same application for HR, right? And across the line, right? So if you start building the math of layering applications on top of applications and reporting tools upon reporting tools, there's a complexity that gets created that becomes a bottleneck to having true insight and analytics across all lines of businesses, across all different roles within the organization. And again, I don't care whether I'm the executive or whether I'm the shop floor person, I still need to get insight that allows me to better prepare my aspect of the business, right? And look at it from a backwards perspective, but also from a front-looking perspective. Well, that's been a challenge in the past, right? Because, with having that sophisticated IT landscape, there's a challenge of trying to grab all that data, normalizing it or mashing it up in a meaningful manner that then could be presented simply and securely to a reporting tool that's going to support the whole, business community. And in reality, to get that accomplished, in years past, that's been a very, heavy-handed IT project, right? And as IT resources and IT budgets are tightly constrained, then the business is forced to wait to eventually get that robust solution for them. And in reality, that problem just kind of keeps on perpetuating year after year because that problem gets more complex, it gets more daunting. So organizations kind of freeze and just kind of go, as is for a good bit of time. But again, ultimately, we're not really trying to drive a user experience that's going to be meaningful to a business user. So SAP, has understood that. And I know some of you in the audience probably are leveraging business objects tools today or SAP BI tools today that are installed in your four walls of the organization, and you're probably facing similar challenges. But with Business Objects Cloud, there's a drive by SAP to simplify the user experience, and the Business Objects Cloud fits into that strategy by simplifying the ability to grab data and providing a user experience that allows you to get the right type of insights and right type of report, so that you can truly go from insight to action, or the right type of operational report that's going to give me all the key data points or line items or metrics that are going to allow me to truly measure my aspect of this business. Now, by being able to get that information and by being able to get that insight to action, now there's going to be new opportunities to innovate my perspective on my business, right? Because if I'm armed with better information, if I'm armed with different views, multidimensional views of the data that's important to me, and I'm able to ideate off of that, I'm going to be able to be more creative in my perspective of, whether I'm in finance or HR, I'm going to be able to elicit a different perspective on how to measure my success and how to align my aspect of the organization to conform to the company's overall strategic imperatives, right? That's always been a challenge for a lot of organizations, whether small or large, because quite frankly, data has always been captured in a very tactical, transactional sense. So I'm able to view, a report of all my open sales orders, all my open production orders, right? But I can't really look at the data to notice some trends and things of the sort. And to be able to get that accomplished in traditional BI approaches, that's a pretty mammoth project or engagement. That's a large undertaking that's going to impact both IT and the business, right? But with Business Objects Cloud, we're actually able to deliver that simplification and innovation in an accelerated manner, right? Because what we're doing is that we've created a tool that's powered by our HANA Cloud platform, and then built a user experience or a UI that's intuitive, that's going to allow you to develop reporting, that's going to allow you to develop data models without having to code, without having to have a data scientist background or having a very deep report development background. I, as a uneducated IT user, could create reports and analytics for my own purposes, leveraging this tool. So that's, broadly speaking, the intention of the value proposition of this tool. So let's delve down into it a little bit. So again, to properly introduce Business Objects Cloud, it is a next-generation business intelligence and analytics tool that is delivered as a SaaS solution or software as a service that is built natively on SAP's HANA Cloud platform. And it provides business intelligence, planning, and predictive capabilities for all types of users under one product solution, right? And that statement in itself is powerful because whether you're looking at business objects on-prem tools or other BI tools, again, there's usually different tools for different purposes. But the challenge that creates is if I am the controller And if I have to do all my planning in this application and this user experience, and I have to get my financial reports from my ERP system, and then I have to go to this other tool, to be able to get, procurement data, that doesn't really drive an effective use of my time. It doesn't really provide me a complete picture of the things that I need to be able to see. So within Business Objects Cloud, as you could see just from some of these screenshots, all of these assets are actually created within one tool, right? So you get integrated planning and business intelligence. So now you're being able to save time, right? But at the same time, you're able to reduce errors because you're dealing with the same data, right? You're pulling up the same data. It's live data, so there's less room for error, right? And because it's a cloud solution, I'm able to do that, in a very agile way with a lower cost of ownership. So how does it fit into the big picture, right? So, this is really kind of a high-level 30,000-foot view of SAP's portfolio today with all the newest products. And, of course, there's a representation of both cloud and on-premise applications. Now, at the epicenter of everything is the HANA platform, right? And I'm sure most of you have heard, some aspect of HANA, whether it's the fact that it's an in-memory platform, or whether it's that there's an ability to rapidly acquire data and make it available for reporting tools, or to drive simplification and acceleration of business processes across your ERP system, whether it's S/4HANA or in cloud applications like SuccessFactors or Ariba or any type of cloud application that gets delivered. But what you'll notice here in the gold circle is the Business Objects Cloud portfolio. So again, this is a very fundamentally different tool that exists outside of the Business Objects tool set that is installed in your four walls of the organization. There is a bit of a misconception. I've talked to customers that have stated, I thought Business Objects Cloud was basically taking the on-prem products and taking Design Studio, taking Lumira, taking Crystal Reports, taking Office Analysis, bringing that onto the cloud and making it available as a cloud subscription. That is not the case. It truly is a differently architected solution, a more nimble solution that can extend your reporting capability of any SAP application. And we'll talk about the non-SAP applications here in a moment, but also can leverage your existing BI investments, with SAP BI or Business Objects as potential sources, and as an aggregator of all business intelligence and visualizations and predictive capability. So this gives you kind of a broader picture of where it fits in, but do understand that it is its own solution set that is on its own path, and that it is not just another version of Business Objects, on-prem. So given that, right, so that it is a different product, of course, it does, then now align with SAP's bigger picture analytics strategy. So in the lower half of this slide, you'll notice that, SAP's continual investment into their Business Objects portfolio will continue. That will still always be a strategic solution set for SAP, and in turn for its customers that are leveraging that. So there's continued innovations in those tool sets and capabilities, right? But now, in addition to that, now we've got a cloud option, right, where with Business Objects Cloud, you can perform similar capabilities to a certain extent. But think of it as the, kind of the utility player where you have, all those product capabilities that you see below into one stack, right? But what's more, centered around is that it provides that consumer-grade experience. It provides data interoperability with your existing BI investments, but it's also built on the HANA Cloud platform, which to a certain extent I think is one of the largest value propositions of the product, because now you're getting that HANA engine that's truly going to transform simplification of your IT infrastructure and the acceleration of innovation, right? But note that they are different paths. around SAP's analytics strategy, and there are parallel efforts to continue to develop and enhance and consume client feedback for the purposes of continuing to develop the roadmap. So now let's take a look at it from a more technical perspective, right? So in the blue bubble here, you've got the BusinessObjects Cloud, right? Now, because it's running on the HAL Cloud platform, I'm able to consume data from all types of different data sources. So I'll focus on the SAP ones to begin with, and then transition to the non-SAP data sources, right? So in the on the cloud, there is native connectors to SAP's cloud applications, or even other external HANA cloud-based services, whether it's HANA Cloud Database as a Service, whether it's SuccessFactors, whether it's Concur, Ariba, or Fieldglass. So, each of those tools do have their own reporting capabilities, but to my earlier point, right, they're very focused to that line of business, and they provide very straightforward reporting capabilities. They may be not true business intelligence, right? And when I say business intelligence, I'm talking about analytics and predictive capability, and then also an ability to mash up other data from other line of business sources, right? So there is native connectors to, that plug and play that I can rope in and bring data in. I can start creating reports, the moment that data becomes available, and it's a live feed, right? Now let's talk about the SAP on-premise application. So whether it's S/4HANA or a previous release of ERP, whether it's an ECC system, whether it's a BW system, an older release of BW or a BW on HANA or BPC, though that information can also be consumed in real time, so that it becomes available as reportable data in BusinessObjects Cloud. Now, let's transition to the non-SAP data sources. So again, I'll start on the cloud side, and this is where there's been some terrific opportunities that have been exposed by our customers that, yes, they have a large footprint of SAP applications, but they're also, have other cloud applications that they're leveraging. A good example is Salesforce, where, a customer may be using that to a limited extent to drive some of their Salesforce automation, right? And now you have an ability very quickly, very seamlessly to be able to pull in Salesforce data and mash that up with other SAP data sources and be able to have a unified reporting platform with leveraging BusinessObjects Cloud. So SAP continues to make investments in these cloud sources. So you'll see an ability to connect to Salesforce. Maybe you're leveraging Google Docs, whether you're leveraging Workday or Oracle or Cornerstone cloud applications, that exist on the cloud. And the same could be said on the on-premise applications, right? So whether you're pulling in from an on-premise application or simply a database, or whether you want to bring an Internet of Things, component like Hadoop, or just some of those big data platforms, you're also able to connect to that data and seamlessly, mash that up within the BusinessObjects Cloud stack. So what I'll draw attention upon is kind of in the middle layer, where the data acquisition is a very easy to manage process, where I can schedule, my data acquisition to be in real time, or I can do it in batch. I could do it in different schedules, but once it's presented and available, then I have an ability to demonstrate that data to my business users, and they have an ability to view, all these data sources in one analytic or one report, or maybe a dashboard, a combination of these elements. And we'll look at an example of that later on in the demonstration. So let's talk a little bit about the core workflow, or the core capability from the user perspective, right? So the main core workflow for business intelligence is what you see here represented in these three pillars, right? So once I have my connectors to the data available, and I've got a model available to me, but I can actually connect to that data and I can prepare that data. But because it's running, on the HANA Cloud platform, the moment that I connect the data and bring the data in, it's actually going to allow me to model the data. And actually, it's going to present a perspective. It's actually going to suggest a model, right? And because it's very much of a almost kind of spreadsheet looking feel, I can say, okay, well, all these data elements make sense to me. These are my calculated key figures, and I can start doing my calculations on the fly. I can massage the data and things of the sort. But the key point there is I'm able to prepare it, but also at the same time, I am still maintaining the integrity of the data from the data source, right? And then once I've prepared it, now I'm actually able to visualize and build my own views of the data, right? So there is almost what I would call a widget library, where if I want to represent information in graphs, I want to put them as kind of list reports, or I want to put them in geographical perspective, I'm able to do that very quickly and very easily without any kind of coding, right? So there's no desktop that's required to do that, right? And I'm able to personalize my own views. The key thing, right, is, again, whether I'm an advanced user or a simple user, the user experience is such that I can start creating these rich stories. And when I talk about business intelligence, that's really the best way I can relate it, is that you want to tell a story, you want to paint a picture, right? I always view reports as a very static, very focused perspective of your business, but it's a small sliver of the perspective of your business. When I'm able to create a narrative and I can create 3 or 4 perspectives that start painting the picture, that is more meaningful to me, right? Because I'm a visual learner, and adult learners tend to be visual in nature. So adoption of the tool becomes more prevalent because of that visual capability. And then once I've built that perspective, right, and once I've created a story, now I want to be able to collaborate with my team in real time to share that perspective and maybe elicit some feedback, right? But if you think about it in traditional tools, or tools that you might have in your organization today, you might have had to dump that out into a spreadsheet. You email that. The moment that you sent that email out, you're disconnected from the data. The data becomes old. You've opened up opportunity for people to start making changes, and that control of that data model then kind of goes out the window. But now here we've got these 3 key pillars, again, dealing all with the same data set, all the same perspective, the live data, and now, but we're looking at visualizations rather than straightforward static reports that could be interpreted in different ways. Now, if I transition to the planning perspective, this is also a key capability within the tool. So, and it's very popular amongst my customers on the finance side of the organization, though it's not limited to that. But from a planning perspective, planning has always been a difficult exercise. If you think about how you plan for your fiscal, for your new fiscal years, that process typically starts in the beginning of the last quarter, right? You start releasing your data scientists out or your analysts out to go collect a lot of data from a lot of different sources, from a lot of different departments. And now you start, you need them to aggregate that, and you iterate back and forth with them, and we're talking about over weeks just to get trust to that data. Now we simplified that process because we're already pulled in that data, but now we've got a planning tool that allows me to create, planning models on the fly and modify calculations on the fly, right? I can take the system can generate models on my behalf if I just want something to springboard my planning process, right? Because I just, I don't want to create something from scratch, right? But the key thing is that as I'm iterating off of that, we're talking about hours, days doing that versus weeks and months. But we can always deal with up to the minute data because, again, we're pulling from the same data sources. Now, I don't know about you, but when I've gone through the planning process, I've always very much dealt with a spreadsheet, to develop my plans, right? But again, for different users and different audience members, that doesn't necessarily paint a picture for me, right? So now I'm also have an ability to create my plan, but also at the same time create some visualizations about the plan, right? What ifs? What if revenue, if we anticipate there's going to be a revenue shrinkage in the third quarter of the next fiscal year, what happens, right? So now I'm able to paint that picture and tell that story. But at the same time, you can have full trust that the data model itself is connected. It's dealing with the live data. It's all real time. So again, we're all on a level playing field when we're going through that planning process. So summarize that capability, right? So the key emphasis that if you take away anything about the tool and about the adoption of the tool, it's really around the right side of this chart, the business user. When I've interviewed a lot of our customers, like I have one customer that said, well, we can't really tackle the enterprise information management challenge that we have, or the BI strategy challenges that we have, because we have 127 data warehouse applications and BI tools, right? And they're a pretty considerably large organization. So for them just to even try to tackle this challenge, it's like looking out at Mount Everest. It's a Herculean task to get that done. So they haven't really done anything about that until recently. But if we look back and we do a SWOT analysis of why those tools were created, was quite frankly because there was a challenge when a business user in one business unit or one department or one region needed to get a report, right? They would go to their IT team and say, I need this, right? IT would respond, understand, we don't have all that data in one place, and we've got it across different BI tools. So let us work on getting that all consolidated, and then we'll deliver that to you. Or the second response is, we've taken that request, but you know what? You're probably our 150th request on our list, so we'll get to that eventually, right? So what's happened was basically, the silo approach, right? Okay, well, I can't wait for IT to get that done. So you know what? I'm going to build my own Access database, right? And I'm going to go get my own script developer, data scientist, and have them create, grab the data from my application, dump it into a database, and we'll create our own little reporting tool because I can't wait, and we need to be able to move forward, right? Or they procure their own, off-the-shelf product, and they roll it out. But when you start layering upon layering it, then you run into that challenge where now you've got a big, a complex landscape of different reporting tools, different databases, different data sources, right? And then the other challenge too that you run into is that maybe you do have an enterprise reporting tool, but because it's not intuitive, they don't use it. So again, they still, the business users still continue to invest into, building their own solutions, right? So with BusinessObjects Cloud, the intention is to drive that adoption, right? To make it, to make it intuitive, so that the novice user can get up to speed quickly, and it can be meaningful for them, right? So they don't feel compelled that that they need to go to another tool to get that report or perspective that they need to support their business, right? So that is a big theme with this. It's about how do we bridge the divide between IT and business, and that business user adoption, that empowerment, to truly have self-service BI is really kind of the transformational value that BusinessObjects Cloud can deliver. At the same time, though, IT cannot be ignored, and we're going to talk a little bit about a use case because I do think that some of our customers tend to have a misconception that cloud means no IT involvement. There absolutely has to be IT involvement because it's still capturing some of your most important assets, and that's your data, right? And it still has to be secure, right? And it still, needs to be, delivered in a controlled manner to whatever corporate strategies your organization might have, right? And then there's also some advanced delivery of data modeling and reports that truly, do need to be developed on behalf of the whole organization. And there is IT capability that can take care of those kind of requirements, right? So there is an expert user mode, within BusinessObjects Cloud. So if they want to create some very complex multidimensional data views, they can do so, right? If they want to create a library of reports that, all my 27 business units across 30 different countries can be able to consume because it's a set of, reports to just get them started, they're able to deliver that as well, right? But they also have a similar learning curve to the users, which is low, but at the same time, they have the power to get down into the technical detail. So if I wanted a model as an example, if I'm the business user, I have a UI that allows me to model without having to do any kind of coding, right? And the system proposes a lot of things. But if I'm a more advanced user, I've got a data modeling background, I can have all the level of control that I want as well within the application. So you have an ability to do both. So now I'm supporting both IT and I'm supporting for business, and I'm helping IT because now they're really truly focused on the things that are going to be, more corporate or more global in support of the business. And now they're offloaded with a very specific BI request for the one user, for the one department, or for the one business unit, because now you've empowered the business users to, be self-sufficient to a large extent. So let's give you a perspective on the system itself. So I'm going to show you an example here. So in this scenario, we've created a corporate dashboard for a services organization called GF Technologies, right? So their challenge was that they needed a dashboard for the operations officer that can combine procurement data with HR data, with temporary labor data, and travel and expense data, right? And why? Because for a professional services organization, some of their biggest cost items are, of course, employees, indirect spend, and sending their people to service, their clients, right? So they wanted to get a better control of their employee base and the procurement spend, right? So this is just a sample here of one dashboard. So what I'll call out here is at the top is your toolbar, right? If you've used other BI tools or other SAP Business Objects tools, right? These toolbars either exist in a very simplistic state, but with not a lot of capability, or the toolbars are much more complex and are very foreign to the business user. But this kind of almost takes a Microsoft Office look and feel, that is very intuitive for a business user to leverage, right? But here is my actually delivered analytic. And in this case, my main dashboard, I have a geographical chart that reflects 3 data elements. And all I needed to do was bring, layer the data elements on top of this chart, and they were automatically created. And what it had was where my headquarters were, and that's depicted by the yellow pinpoints here, where my employees are traveling, right? And that's depicted by the blue bubbles here. And the smaller the bubble, the less frequently that you travel to that location. The bigger the bubble, the more frequent travel to that location. So you can imagine across my main location, the bubble's starting to get bigger, right? And because I'm a socially conscious organization, I also want to capture the carbon footprint, that impact of my travel, and that's represented in the red, right? So now this is telling me more of a picture that we're traveling quite often to our offices, obviously, and maybe that's something that I needed to look into. It's like, why are we traveling so much to the office? Can we do something like teleconferencing, to reduce that? And I notice here that a lot of probably my client base is across the East Coast in the U.S., right? Now, as I transition down on this dashboard, I also have employee counts, I have contractor counts, and I have head count by different departments, right? And then I also have my procurement spend KPI, which, from a chief operating officer's perspective or operations leader perspective, I want to be able to track my strategically managed spend and the non-strategically managed spend. So in this case, contract spend is good, non-contract spend is bad because we've got people just buying, without, preferred agreements and things of the sort, right? And then I've got a KPI that's tracking a specific, initiative of mine, travel spend compared to video conferencing spend, right? So if I notice in this chart here, right, the bar graphs represent travel expense, and over, 2 years ago, that was continually driving or going up, right? But as I put a program in to leverage video conferencing equipment and capabilities more, and that's represented by the line chart, I saw a direct correlation of that being reduced, right? So for me, as the Chief Operating Officer, these are the kind of the key things that I want to see immediately day one, right? But you know what? As I'm looking at this, I'm noticing that on my headcount per team, I've got all my employees. That's fantastic, right? So I know, how many people, how much headcount I have in my development side, and how many I have in sales, and how much I have in product development, right? But what I'm missing though is that I noticed that I've got a larger component of contractors that normally I would have, but I'm missing this out of this chart. So now, and again, I'm a business user, not an IT user, but a business user. I want to be able to incorporate my contractors to this particular KPI. So what I simply need to do is get into designer mode, and I've got a bit of a pop-up here, and I've got all my data sources available to me. And what I'm going to bring in this case, I'm going to bring in contractor data from my Fieldglass application. I'm going to add a measure, and I just want to know how many contractors are there. And the moment that I click this, in real time, that data element is brought into my chart here. So now I've got a breakdown of development employees by contractor employees, and now I've got that represented here. I didn't have to make any changes to a report design, from an IT perspective. I didn't have to go create an extractor to bring in that data. Me as the Chief Operating Officer, I wouldn't even know how to do that without calling somebody. But now, very quickly, through a couple clicks, I was able to bring that information in. So that's the intuitiveness that is going to drive that user adoption, that we want to achieve, right? So I'm going to transition over here to my HR data, right? So now when I'm looking at my organization from a people perspective, right? Now I have a breakdown to all the KPIs that are meaningful to me, right? The number of employees that I have, the number of openings that I have. And I also can keep on track of my hires and terminations, open positions by department, employment-related events. Now, one of the initiatives that we put together as an organization is to make sure that we've got a balance, an equal opportunity a program across the whole organization. And we're starting to track, for each position and for each department, how many male employees fill positions versus female employee positions. And I put together a KPI of gender by job level. And in my diversification program, I'm doing a pretty good job from an individual contributor perspective, right? Starting to get a little bit more balance. Same thing on the manager side. But when I notice here at the director executive level, I have only male employees. So why? There's something that's happening, as people are going through their succession and they're going through their careers at our organization, where they're not, female employees are not getting to director and executive positions. So if you imagine in your traditional BI perspective, that I wouldn't be able to drill down as an operations officer or as a CHRO to be able to, start doing my own analysis. But within the tool here, I actually can pick my analytics and I can drill down into the actual data itself. But I can do this without being, afraid to do anything bad to the data and being also intimidated by the tool. But because simply if I got access to the data view, I know I've got an ability to start picking measures that are meaningful to me. So I want to go ahead and grab how many female employees I have, how many male employees I have. I want to start understanding why they're leaving. So I want to pick my termination event. And at the same time, I want to bring in why people are leaving. So if you notice, as I'm clicking through these data elements, the tool is actually already providing a report or an analytic for me, right? So now that I see this, it's already created a report on the fly. I didn't have to do any kind of design. I just picked, the data that's meaningful to me, and now I've got a bar graph that tells me, how many early retirements, how many terminations there are other, and it's broken out by male and female. And right immediately what catches my eye is here, in this graph, I've got 7 female employees that are leaving because of work-life balance. And that seems disproportionately large compared to every other reason. And so that right there has told me, wait a minute, we're doing a poor job of making sure that for our female employees, there's a good work-life balance, and maybe that's why we're losing, and that's why they're not staying to become executives in our organization. So if you think about that use case right there, in traditional BI tools, right, where your data can come from one HRIS system, and you might be using ADP for some other aspects of HR, or you're using a Cornerstone for learning, or whatever the case may be, to provide this kind of perspective could take months, from your IT department. Now I was able to do that in a matter of minutes without any kind of IT intervention. So that gives you a good feel of the capability of getting that intuitive user experience, but at the same time, the power of that data model that is that's going to be important to drive the reporting capability of the business user. So I'll go back here to my presentation. Right. So just to talk about one case study. So we delivered this tool to a printing organization named Interprint. Right. So they were an organization that's been a long-standing SAP customer. They were originally headquartered and still headquartered in Germany. Right. But they've expanded their operations across the globe, and including into the U.S. Now, as we were talking to the business leader for the U.S. business, his biggest challenge as we spoke to him was, hey, I'm beholden to my IT department in Germany, as far as being able to get the reports that are meaningful to me. I just need 4 reports. And if I can get these 4 reports, my business would be able to be improved by at least 30%, and my customer, relationships are going to be improved dramatically, because now we're going to be able to reduce our lead times for our orders. If I was to get, a report for my work list for the things that I need to do on the shop floor, right, and being able to maintain a KPI of our delivery dates, right, and being able to be notified whether we're meeting our threshold, we're exceeding our threshold, or more concerning, we're not meeting our threshold, right? Challenge is that they leverage SAP, they leverage ERP, right? And they do have some reports, but they were more appropriate for the overseas business. They really didn't, support their U.S. customers, and provide information for the U.S. customers, right? So they were looking for their own BI tools, and actually they were also investigating traditional on-prem tools. But the challenge was because they were doing this, kind of on their own. The U.S. business was. They had to wait until IT would sign off on any enterprise tool, because they would, it would have to be built once and deployed across all business units. However, the challenge is that for them to do that, it would take too long for that to happen. And then as they were evaluating tools that they would procure only for the U.S., they came to find out they don't have enough IT bandwidth or muscle to actually be able to implement a tool and develop the reports that they needed, or the dashboards that they needed. So when we originally talked to them, they were also considering traditional BI tools, including BusinessObjects, right? But when we demonstrated the BusinessObjects Cloud, that's when the light bulb moment hit, because to a certain extent, they were able to deliver this BI solution with very little IT involvement from Germany, and they were able to define it on their own, and they were able to develop it quickly so that they could support the business, right? So the solution that was actually ended up being delivered was we delivered the public edition of the BusinessObjects Cloud toolset, the HANA Cloud platform, and we were able to create 2 exception reports and dashboards. And in reality, those exceptions and dashboards reports took only 3 weeks to deliver from inception to production, right? And now they've been able to manage all their exceptions, so they've been able to reduce their lead times by a month in just 1 month of production, right? So to them, that was immediate value, right? So they've been able to get that TCO reduced, and they were able to get that business value that they intended, met very quickly, right? So it was success from that perspective. However, there was some lessons learned through the project, right? And this is, we highlighted this case study because we do think it's a bit representation of the experience of implementation for customers that do elect to bring on BusinessObjects Cloud. So one of the items is, it's third on this list, is interpret, whether right or wrong, expected that there would be no IT involvement, right? They kind of had the same conception that a lot of organizations. It's cloud, right? I could just turn it on, I get my users, and I'm ready to go. Now, we all wish it could be that simple. It is simple, to adopt cloud applications, but there is some considerations to be had, right? So because they'd expected no IT involvement, right? There's still a data modeling exercise that needs to be performed. Now, if they used a traditional BI toolset, that model could have taken months to create with it versus it took, days to create with BusinessObjects Cloud, but it still required, some capability, some traditional IT capability to develop that. In the U.S. business, they're very light on that. So we had to quickly transition to putting some effort into some more training for the local team. So, as we built that data model for them, that they then could take some ownership of that. So education was a key thing that was not necessarily expected by them. They expected to learn how to leverage the tool for report development and enhancement, but they did need to have some data modeling capability, and that was a lesson learned from that perspective. So one of the things that you can't lose sight of is this is a BI tool. This is a data management tool, and it makes it much easier to work, to conduct those activities than ever before. But you still have to have a context to how to perform those activities, right? At least to get you going, so that then you could support your business user. So there is still an aspect of that. Second thing was, because the tool is evolving at a rapid pace, right? And we'll talk about the innovations here in a moment. One of the things that we learned through delivering the project was in some of the calculations that they performed, what they were doing was dumping out ERP data, put it into a spreadsheet, and they were doing a lot of, calculations on via SQL scripts, via an Access database, right? So as time went on, those calculations became more complex because they never really changed the data in the source system. They just were continually doing that in that Access database. So they got to a point where those became so sophisticated that they did require advanced modeling. And when they were able, once we realized that, there were some limitations in the tools at that time that, this allowed the summation of calculated key figures, to a column within the data model, right? That was an issue, and we were able to address that though by creating what's called an analytical view or a data model in the HANA Cloud platform directly instead of versus the BusinessObjects Cloud tool. So now, because SAP views this as a strategic product, right, we were actually able to get direct access to the developers, and they were very helpful in coming up with a workaround, and then took that feedback and now have included into the roadmap, and that issue, has now been taken care of, and that's the speed of delivery that SAP is working on. But in that project, that was an issue. So as we plan these kind of projects, we know, and what we would advise our clients to do is just make it, one of the things that has to be set up very early is a communication method to the Business Objects Cloud team at SAP. So if these issues do arise, that can be resolved very quickly. Now, lastly, was Business Objects Cloud is running on its own HANA Cloud platform. And from a public edition perspective, there is a shared HANA Cloud platform across a lot of customers, which means that you have limited access to those. So if you want to have your own HANA Cloud environment, you can, and which we deliver to Interprint. But there's going to be a connection that needs to happen between the HANA Cloud platform and the Business Objects tool, and they have to be in similar release levels for interoperability. When we were delivering that solution, the Business Objects release was a little bit behind to the HANA Cloud platform, so there wasn't a native connection. And again, we worked with SAP to resolve it, and now since then that issue has been taken care of. But that is a consideration to be had. Is since we're talking about different cloud platforms, there is going to be kind of a connection layer that you have to define, and you have to ensure that in your testing process that interoperability works well. But again, the bigger theme though is that in part of project planning, you want to make sure that you have a communication channel to SAP. But all in all, even through these challenges, Interprint now has been able to get those exception reports that have been able to provide that real-time insight to manage their business here in the U.S. And it's been so transformative that now they're evaluating it as a global solution instead of trying to reinvent the wheel with other tool sets, right? So it's been a glowing success from that perspective. But there was some things to be considered that they weren't aware of as they were deploying the product. So I'm going to hand over the baton here to Dan to just talk about how the application can be consumed within your organization.
Thanks so much, Abe. This is Dan, everybody. I work with SAP actually directly, and I've worked very closely with Abe and the team at Microexcel with a few projects here actually. So I did want to kind of reiterate and piggyback on exactly what Abe just said about that communication channel. There is a reason why Microexcel is one of our preferred partners. They're very, very good at relaying a lot of that information from clients that they engage with and relaying it to our team here to basically improve the tool as we go. And that's one thing that you're getting with this tool is, there's a team of about 400 or 500 people working right above me here actually, and they're constantly working on improving the tool from feedback that they're getting from the clients. But enough about that. We did want to share very quickly with you guys how the tool is actually priced and how it's licensed, because we're very, very proud of this. This is one of the first actually SAP products that is extremely inexpensive. So when we said the total cost of ownership is very low, we absolutely mean it. So you will see here that there are basically three different flavors of the tool, and the three different tools would basically be we would determine what would be needed in a discovery process, but the licenses start as low as $22 a user a month, and that's kind of the message that we want to drive here, right? So that $22 user will be able to do all of the visualizations, dashboards, setting up KPIs, all of that visual and spatial data that you guys saw earlier. All of that is included in that license. For around $50, you're getting what we call machine discovery, or this predictive standard user, where you're able to, without having access to a data scientist or somebody who knows R or is very versed in regression analysis or anything along that nature, you're able to, with a few clicks of a mouse, to get some very, very deep insights in terms of correlations and what's driving what in your data, very, very quickly and easily to consume. And then the last piece is the financial kind of planning and and budgeting piece. So that would be priced, for about $143 a user, but that model would be a little bit different to price, so that we can definitely discuss if a need be. So I didn't want to take any more time with this, but I will hand it over back to Abe. Thanks, everyone.
To go back to an earlier point about innovations, right? So because this is a strategic cloud business intelligence product for SAP, they've made significant investments into developing the capability that exists today, and we talked through that already. But note that they're going to continue to expand its capability, right? And broadly speaking, it really comes around, yes, the business intelligence capability to mature, visualizations and to take care of some more different types of calculations that, we're getting feedback from the customers, to incorporate into the product. But I think where the biggest movement, tends to be, and probably the one that we also get the most feedback from customers, is around the connectors, right? So even since we published this slide, if you noticed on the plan of innovations, we're talking about, connectors for Concur, for SuccessFactors, OData connections. They've already been released. So SAP releases a new version of the product almost on a bi-weekly basis, right? So you're going to get that immediate access to all these planned innovations. And that library of connectors is going to continue to expand, as SAP releases applications, and then also to connect to other external data sources, right? We talked about, some already like Salesforce, but if you imagine, right, there's there's thousands of applications, and a lot of our customers are, leveraging a bevy of different types of applications, and SAP is going to continue to expand that library so that you can have native connectors, so that you don't have to perform the heavy data movement exercise of moving data from point A to point B just to get reports, right? So that's going to continue to drive and evolve.
All right. Thank you, Abe. Let's see. Abe, did you want to leave any closing remarks?
Absolutely. So just just folks, the last kind of three main points that I'll leave you with is, with BusinessObjects Cloud, you'll have an ability to have integrated analytics within one tool, right? Supporting all lines of businesses, supporting all sorts of data sources, and bringing it all together, right? But in reality, is to empower your business users to get the insights that they need and to elicit new potential use cases within your own organization, so you can elicit, a different point of view, right? And that's ultimately where the power of the tool lies, right? But as you roll these out, applications do take into consideration that there is a bit of a mini project, right? There's some considerations to be had, but the exercise to deliver this is infinitely much simpler than traditional BI tools and things that you might have experienced within your own organizations in the past.
Okay. Thank you, guys. We are now moving on to the question and answer portion of our webinar. If you have any questions, now is the time to submit them using the purple Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. All right, we do have a couple of questions first from the audience. The first one is there a future strategy to connect to other CRM packages like Microsoft Dynamics?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. So I mean, there's actually quite a bit of customers that do have some sort of Microsoft tools, whether it's Dynamics, whether it's SharePoint, and there's a capability to bring in that data directly from the databases of those applications. And as SAP develops the connectors, there'll be native connections directly to the application, so that you can consume that data in real time.
Thank you, Abe. The next question is, how long does it take a typical business user to learn the tool?
Typically what we found is it's a matter of a couple of days, right? Once you've shown them an example and you've shown them the things that they really care about, making some personalizations and things of the sort, usually we find in 2 to 3 days with their own data, they can have proficiency enough that they feel comfortable and they see value out of the tool.
Okay. Next question is, does SAP Business Objects Cloud replace the SAP Business Objects Planning and Consolidation application?
It does not. So it's a different solution. So SAP will continue to make investments into the Business Planning and Consolidation tool, or BPSU, for on-prem installations for the customers that have made those investments or want an installation to be done on their organization. But now with Business Objects Cloud, you have an ability to have a planning tool in the cloud as an alternative, right? So again, it's incumbent upon what your strategy is in adopting cloud, not adopting cloud, or if you wanted to install it in your four walls of the organization. But it does not replace. So continued investments are going to go on both sides of the fence.
Okay, thank you, Abe. Next question is, can I use SAP Business Objects Cloud with SAP Business Objects BI solutions?
Yes, you can. So there is native connectors already. So if I've created let's say a Webby report in Business Objects, I'm actually can make that available to Business Objects Cloud if I wanted to do so, or if I already have an SAP BI data warehouse, I can leverage that as a data source for Business Objects Cloud.
Okay, and next question is SAP Business Objects Cloud multi-tenant?
So for the public edition, it is. But if a customer also has the option of selecting a private one, so that'll be a single tenant. But most of the customers are electing to leverage the public cloud because of its multi-tenancy.
Next question. Are there some standard reports that I can get with my implementation?
Yeah, so that's actually a recent development with SAP is that they're starting to make templates available, right? Because obviously, as you could imagine, the first users of this are SAP ERP users. So, traditional analytics and reports because of supply chain or financials, right? There's already kind of a perspective of data, how you want to view it. So SAP is making those available so you can get up and running pretty quickly on the tool.
Next question. What is the typical length of the project to set up BOC?
So typically, across all our projects, we've averaged basically about 4 to 5 weeks in delivering a project. And really what that encompasses is setting up an initial analytical view or data model and setting, an initial set of reports as a starter packet, or springboard package is probably a better term for our customers. And in that exercise, they get to learn the tool. They get to learn, how we acquire the data, and they in turn then can take ownership of report development onward. So it's a pretty straightforward, pretty short-term process, and that's always the goal. These should not be multi-month or multi-year engagements. That's unheard of for deploying in Business Objects Cloud.
Thank you. And the last question, does SAP Business Objects Cloud replace on-premise versions of SAP Business Objects Lumira?
No, it does not. Though there is similar capability within Business Objects Cloud, as it relates to Lumira in the visualization aspect of it, but it does not replace. Remember, kind of the theme of Business Objects Cloud was to combine multiple capabilities into one tool set. So that is kind of an alternative path, but Lumira will continue in the traditional business object stack, and continue. It is continued to be enhanced and developed by SAP.
Thank you, Abe. Abe, Dan, would you like to make any last remarks?
No, thank you, folks. Hopefully you found this to be informative, and at the very least, we wanted to make sure that customers are aware of that this is a very different type of tool set, right? And hopefully you understand the difference between that. But we appreciate you taking the time this morning, listening to the presentation. So thanks again.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo that on the SAP side too. Thank you very much for attending today, and we look forward to speaking with many of you in the future.
Yes, thank you, Abe and Dan, for a great webcast. On behalf of ASUG, I'd like to thank Microexcel as well as all of you who took the time out today to attend this webcast. Once again, the recording and the slides from today's program will be posted to the ASUG website, and all registrants will receive an email with the link to those materials. With that, I would like to close today's webcast. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.